Why are you afraid to be great? Just leave a little room for greatness. People say, what does that mean? You can't pre-script the whole game. You got your plays, you got your plan, but when you're down by 12, you got to make adjustments. And that leaving room for greatness is that you show up and you ready for whatever happens. And then sometimes great things happen because there's room for greatness. So I was like, you know what? I've been preparing my whole life to be at this point. So when I go on stage, I just left a little room. And it seems to come together because you're prepared because of that grind.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Tech in Motion podcast. Very excited for our guest that we have today, Kelsey Hightower. We're going to be covering some amazing things. My name is Gerald and VP of Technology and Innovation at Darktrace, background in software engineering, DevOps, cloud, etc.
And you already know, we appreciate y'all coming back. This is your boy, Cory. You can follow me at Chaos the Concept, where we do all things people, all things product. And we're really excited to bring this conversation to you here. We cover a multitude of different things, from contract negotiations, from getting into tech to finding your community and being able to express those things as you grow in your career here. So we're excited to share that with you.
All right, look, I'm Kelsey Hightower. I feel like I've come full circle. I retired last year. Happy to be on the podcast. I've been knowing these guys for a little bit. Been knowing you for a little while. Met you today. And honestly, I'm really looking forward to this talk. I'm back in my hometown in Atlanta, so I want to explore all the things. So I'm looking forward to it.
Kelsey Hightower, welcome, man. I wanted to start out setting a little context because obviously we've been doing the Tech in Motion podcast together. Cory was able to come out. We were kind of worried he wasn't going to be able to get here, but now we're both here. And with a guest that I'm especially excited about. So I want to give all these little context about how I know you. He can give context about how he knows you, and then we can get into things. So for me, seeing you, Kelsey, do your thing has impacted my career dramatically. So like thinking back to specific demos, some of the things you're very famous for me, it was HashiNetties. That was a critical pivot point as I was working as cloud architect SRE type role at the time. And I was like, wow, look at this man, specifically a black man, in front of this crowd, commanding this attention like that. Something I never seen. That it just in my career, and I was already in my career about four-ish years, 5 years. And personally, it set a standard in my mind for what it means, what excellence looks like. My mother growing up always had this saying, strive for excellence. And in that moment for me, that was what excellence looked like. And so going forward, you had no idea what it was. You give it talks. I see on, I think it was Instagram at the time, some guy rambling about what you should do with money, blah, 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 nonsense. But he said something that intrigued me, which was if you have some money, always be willing to invest in yourself and reach out to an expert in the field, offer to pay him something and meet with them. I was like, the only guy I could think of at the time that I wanted to meet with was Kelsey Hightower. So I went on Twitter. You had your messages open, and I messaged you. My hand's like this. As I messaged you, offered you $500 for the hour. I don't mind saying none of this. All of it's going out. And you were like, look, usually I don't charge, but I don't turn down money. And I said, I don't offer money. I'm not willing to spend. And we met for that hour, and it just solidified for me even more so many things and how I was approaching things, how I was trying to emulate things I saw that you were doing and the great engineers were doing. And since then, I count you as now one of those people in my mentor pod. Like, you've helped me career decisions and been extremely impactful in multiple ways. So that's my context. Coming into this conversation with Kelsey, I feel like we're going to get into some very interesting topics across the board of tech, but a lot of just who is Kelsey Hightower? Why do you think the way that you think? What is your background? These are the things that I want people to know because I feel like generationally we haven't seen that a lot. And so understanding the ins and outs of that can be very useful.
Can I take a moment to respond? So I appreciate it all.
Yeah, no, of course.
I'm going to start with you because I don't charge individuals. I don't sell courses. I'm not no life coach. I charge companies. And so when you reached out and you said, hey, I know what you have to offer is valuable, it's a really dope reminder that some people do really understand that time is valuable. It's even doper when people come and say, even though you probably don't need it, I need you to understand that I do have a value on it. You could have said $10. I would have said yes. You could have said $0. I would have said yes. But when someone say 500, look, the 500 is not going to change a lot in my daily life. But it meant something because, even after we talked, the obligation was just one discussion. I'll be following up.
Yeah.
Gerald, how we doing? And I'm pretty sure you're looking at that and be like, yo, why are you following up? Because I'm trying to match your effort. Someone that starts that way lets me know the type of effort. It's not even the dollar amount, it's the fact that you put that much thought into the initialization. And even when we was talking, when you pay for something, you tend to value it. Free food tastes good. When it's $500 a plate, you be like, I could do better than that. We paid $30 for eggs? No, I can't pay $30 for eggs. Eggs are 28 cents when you buy them in bulk. I can't pay. It tastes different. And so when you approach it with that kind of respect, I wanted to make sure that there was no time limit on it. And that was over a year ago at least.
At least, yeah.
At least a year ago. And we've been crossing paths ever since. We've been doing all these things. So I just want to tell you thank you for approaching that. And hopefully you saw it in return. And then you said something dope about the presentation style. And until just this moment, I've never thought about why do I try to put things, not in simple terms, but in natural terms. Humans make things complex. Physics is how humans observe the universe. There was no stone someone found and it had physics on it. These are words we make up to try to understand something we didn't previously understand. And the truth is, our current understanding works for now. It may not be 100% accurate, but for now, the formulas seem to work. But when you look at how the world works, it don't explain it with all of these symbols and words. You want to understand gravity, the world just shows you. Watch this fall. And so when you take the complexities of like tech and you put it back into natural language, that's normal. Everything else we're currently doing is abnormal. So when we go around and we keep using the technical terms, I'm not saying the technical terms don't have merit. Those are shared understanding, shared vocabulary. But when people don't understand what those things are for the very first time, I find it very important to bring things back to natural terms and then explain why we use these metaphors and symbols to represent these things so we all have a shortcut to understanding what we're trying to accomplish. So that's the secret behind that. A lot of people are like, why do you go through this effort every time someone asks you a technical question? It's like, because I want people to actually to understand the answer versus just give it.
Where do you think that instinctually comes from? Because it's not that you're saying something that doesn't feel obvious. Like, say someone doesn't understand something, so we explain it to them in natural terms. That should be natural. Yet it's something that is a minority across the tech industry, I would say, to be able to do that. So my question to you is, where do you think, what part of your life experience feeds that?
You were born that way. You're trained out of it. When you go to school, it's trained out of you. You can't explain the world in normal terms. Like the stigma that natural medicine has. It's a stigma, right? I know Tylenol and Advil. When you start getting into, just chew on that leaf. Hey, whoa. Right? That don't work. There needs to be medically proven things. And so when we get to school, we're taught the vocabulary. Sometimes you taught the vocabulary before the understanding. Just remember this before the test. So a lot of us get straight A's with zero understanding of nothing. You can get straight A's in high school if you have a decent memory. Like if you put in the time to commit to memory, test on Friday, and you can let the rest of it go. So people get in their adult life, don't remember anything because they ain't understand it to begin with. So I think it's natural to explain things in natural order. And so when we get to work, we get the vocabulary. When you go to college, you get the vocabulary. And then when you're on stage and you start doing things natural, people are like, hey, adjust your shoulders. Make sure you wear a collar shirt. You got to have your slides with the speaker notes. Talk should be about this long. Hey, I noticed you used a little bit of slang in your talk. Work that part out. And the worst thing I've ever seen is where, and it's hard to understand it. I'm from the South. When I've seen people go through speaker training, and sometimes depending on the coach, they'll try to coach the accent out of you, right? Because there's a stigma behind the Southern accent.
True.
And so when people hear, they say, oh, okay, this person may not be intelligent. If you want people to take you seriously, you got to work on the accent. So if people want to work out how you sound, what are we doing with the words? And so that's where I think it's natural. Trust me, it's natural. People say, hey, how do you flow so natural? And look, there is a thing where when you connect with the audience, the first time they let you be yourself, where you don't got the slide deck, not using PowerPoint this time, you go back to your slang, the spontaneous joke leap out there, and they catch it. And then they lean in and be like, yo, that's one of the best talks I've ever seen. And then that's them giving you permission that you can do that. And so then the confidence is the other component of it. So I think we all naturally know how to do it. And then the confidence is the thing that lets us continue to do it.
See, that's interesting to me. As you're talking, I'm thinking about that confidence. I'm glad you let it there. Because my next question is, okay, let's say we're naturally born with this and it's trained out of us. That confidence is a large component as well. At what point did that mature for you? Or were you just naturally confident? Or did that have to come with time and people's validation? How did that work for you?
Yeah, well, the dopest thing, I was born in 81. And I look at the current time period because I have a daughter that's 17 now. And people don't go outside like they used to. No. And you know how it is. When you go outside, you play with the whole neighborhood. So if you in third grade, you hanging out with the fifth graders, the sixth graders, they brother that's in 10th grade, everybody in the same pocket. And so you learn how they talk, how they move, where they get their swag from. You go do that first little layup at the local basketball court and you get your junk knocked into the bleachers. And then you learn how to prevent that from stopping. So you're growing and evolving. Your cup's like, I can hang with them. I don't care if they 2 grades older. So your character's being developed. I remember that thing when people said, oh, he got game. So young people don't know what that means. Some may not know what that means. But that odd thing you do as a human where you see someone you like, you're like, I'm going to try to get her number. You walking through Lenox Mall, you got about 35 seconds. Number one, they ain't come to the mall to talk to you.
Absolutely not.
They came to the mall with a whole different agenda. So now either you are a distraction or obstacle. And then your job is in the 35 seconds to turn that into an opportunity. So you learn how to introduce yourself. You learn how to read the room. And when you get good at it, you ain't as scared as you usually be. Like, the worst she could say is no. And then you learn how to respect people and their time because you know you're interrupting them. You're paying attention to the whole scenario. And then I think just those interactions with other humans, with your parents, with your friends, when you're around people that make you feel like you can actually be yourself, then you start getting comfortable with yourself. And I've seen the opposite happen where, that whole bullying thing, and people say, well, why is bullying such a serious thing? Because a lot of times the bullies pull you away from who you are. You just want to wear the shoes you like. I know they're a little bulky, but they're comfortable. I was like, oh, what kind of shoes are those? And so now you got to recalibrate who you are. It's like, well, when my mom took me shopping, I like these. I like the way they felt. And so when I came to school on the first day, this is how I wanted to show up. Then the bully take it all away from you by saying, nah, bruh, what are those? What a Nike? Oh, bro, where'd you get these from? And in real time, it ain't even about the shoes. You asking yourself, why did I pick these?
Yeah.
And now you got to go home and say, Mom, you got to take me back to the store. People talking about my shoes. What you really want to say is people talking about me. And it's hard to defend yourself. So I think just being around friends that when they see you, they laugh. When you win and they like the way you win it, they appreciate your style, your game, how you do things. And then if you're paying attention, you understand that there's going to be a part of the world that's not like that. And you don't always get to choose, but boy, when I have my preference, I try to surround myself with that people that's going to make me grow. So I think that's where it came from, and I just never let it go. So when people say, and I'm lucky it don't happen often, I don't like what you did. That's okay, but at least you understand, you saw me, and you got to judge it. I'd rather that than you not remember who I was in the first place.
That makes sense to me. You know, it's funny, it's I'm doing the research on your recent interviews, because, I mean, I watched a lot of the old ones, you know. But the recent ones, you know, I heard Long Beach, California in the 80s. That's how we start out, the origin story. Long Beach, California in the 80s. Mom was holding it down, went from sleeping in the car to managing a comedian to distinguished engineer at Google for 8 years. There's a lot of gaps in between all of those times. And then I found out today you really lived in Atlanta for a large part of your life. So for me, I'm curious in that pre-Kelsey, because we're going to get into the tech stuff. But growing up, you sound like you had community. That was a big part of it. You had the natural competitive nature of sports in that community, people that held you accountable, y'all had fun with. And I really picked up on, even though you didn't go deep on, I would love to ask, as long as you feel comfortable, your mother as a massive part of this. So, and it sounded in one interview, as an example, you said something specific about your mother and how she would acquire new skills. She'd be in a situation, she had to figure something out, and you saw that. I would love to hear more about that.
What's crazy about the mom thing, maybe there's a lot of people listen to this, it was almost a cliche to be a young black male with a single mom. Seriously, I think people think it's like a joke. It's not a joke. It's so serious. Like, you live with both your parents?
You?
I've been married 18 years, and that was a big goal of mine. I need to be there all the way through. My daughter and I having that discussion. And so having a single mom as a male, and you see all that come with it, number one, you got to work all around the clock. And look, I had a stepfather until about 13, 14, and they separate. And when that separation, it seemed like the days get longer. You're trying to figure out what happened. Did you have something to do with it? And then you knew that it takes two to get this far. And then it separates. And you're like, in your mind, how do you handle all of this by yourself? So you're looking at the late nights, and you don't understand the concept of money, but things change. You move from the crib with the backyard to the apartment.
Yeah.
You ask for the same things. Normally when we go school shopping, we get 2 pair of shoes. Why is it 1 this time? And you're immature that you can't see that things are different. Yeah. And mom's strong. She's not going to give nobody no bad name, even after the divorce. So you kind of seeing this person kind of holding it down, doing their thing. And then when I got my first job at McDonald's, I used to get off the school bus, 10th grade. As soon as it was legal to get that work permit, I was like, please, McDonald's, I need this job because I need to help.
Yeah.
So that part where I was so happy that when I was like 14, 15, I was reading the room, I was like, I can help. McDonald's don't pay that much, $4.75. And I remember getting that first check like, bruh, and I cashed it in a little check cashing spot. And you got 20s. Yeah, we ain't, no $100 bills with them kind of checks. You got 20s though.
Yeah.
And you get to just slide your mom something costs money. You don't even know how much it costs. You just slide your mom something. And look, just like when you gave me that $500, it's not going to change everything. But I think at that moment, my mom knew it was like, oh, you see me.
Yeah.
She never asked for it. She's not going to turn it down because it does chip in. And then I started to think back. So in my tech talks, I started to think back like, my stepfather gave me a lot of work ethic. He was very entrepreneurial, had a PhD, all of these things. And so I give a lot of credit to him. I don't want to erase him from the narrative. But I got to see kind of my mom make progress from being a seamstress. I remember when we was little, your mom got to take you to work sometime. Y'all need to chill, relax, don't make too much noise. I got to go in here, be right back. And so you kind of see mom doing that. Again, you're too young to understand what that entails. And I remember she was like, all right, it's time to graduate from that to get a job. And I remember she was trying to get a job at the U.S. Customs. And one of the roles required you had to learn how to touch type. And what was dope, 2-3 years ago, my mom had seen one of those talks where I was telling the story. And she gave me the other side of the story, so maybe I can tell it more complete now. She was like, hey, when I was like maybe 7, 8, maybe 9, in the home, I remember my mom, I guess she said she went to like a YMCA and you can check out, I think, the typewriter and the flip book. You can literally check it out. And so they asked her when she was filling out the job application, how fast can you type? And I think the response was like, how fast do I need to be? Because it's going to be part of the test.
Gotcha.
So she goes to the YMCA, gets the book, and as you little, you can hear mom start. Tick, 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 tick. One finger pecking. And then over time, you're just hearing it running out of that little eraser stuff. And you like, somebody getting good at what they...
Yeah.
And the part that I didn't remember that she filled in the gap was when she had to go take the exam, I had to go with her. And she just sat me in the chair. She was like, Mom got to go, do the interview. I just need you to sit right here. Because think about that. You're a mother. You should probably have a babysitter, but you ain't got that. So you got to make ends meet how you make them meet.
I'll make it work.
And so she ends up with that job. So now your mom coming home at normal hours, 9 to 5 like the rest of the community, got the badge on, something she's proud of. And so just being able to recall that whatever you want to do, typically, you can kind of, it's not like you're inventing things that have never been done before. The information is typically out there, and you got to add in that part where you're willing to do what you need to do to get it done. And so just seeing my mom kind of make that happen for herself, it's like, man, I get inspired by everyday people. It's easy to get inspired by the right camera angles. It's easy to get inspired by the people where there's a PR person with the perfect script that you get to read. But when you actually see somebody you live with, love you unconditionally, now that I have a child, one thing that's hard to do as an adult, it's probably hard to do as anyone. When you both competing for the same job, you trying to get that job too, there's only one spot. And your homeboy go in there, do the performance review. He come back out and say, I got it. You sitting there like, bruh, what that mean for me? As much as I want to celebrate you, I'm asking the question, what does it mean for me? But when you have a kid and the first time you take your kid to like, they playing soccer for the first time and they score a goal, ain't worried about you. You just happy for them. And do you really realize that you can actually be happy for somebody else shining? It's cool if they shine. You ain't got to shine at the same time. And as much as we all say we want to be able to do, it's hard when you got a path on your own and somebody beat you there.
It's funny you say that. I've always been tired. I mean, Cory knows this. I just refuse to believe there's not enough pie. I refuse. Like, I believe wholeheartedly that if I can eat, everybody can eat.
But it's hard when you're hungry, though.
No, I get that. And that's,
you're hungry, it's hard to see that because you've been, we were just talking about this on the Twitter Spaces the other day. People putting in an application every day.
Not hearing a thing back.
You're not hearing nothing back. And so even if you started believing that, and a year go by, you still ain't got no job, you be like, yo, man, either something wrong with me or the pie ain't big enough. And it's a really hard equation trying to work out by yourself when everybody else eating and you not.
So this is interesting because you're saying a lot, and I got two things in my mind I want to highlight. But the pie thing, because this is big, especially right now with all layoffs and everything people are going through. Do you think it's actually like, I understand the feeling of there's not enough pie, but is it that, or is it just the people that are kind of scared and in this more scarcity mindset that are hiring, or is it just companies that are trimming fat? Like, what's your thought on all of that?
The problem with this question is I have too much time to think.
That sounds like a great problem.
Well, the reason why is because if you think too hard, you get into conspiracy theory land. Okay. If you think too hard, you will start sounding crazy. So surface stuff is easy to deal with.
Yeah.
You can just look at the unemployment numbers, decide whether you believe them or not, and move on. That's easy. Anybody can do that. But to me, sometimes when you just sit and you really think about it, we ain't make the earth. Forget what you believe. We know we ain't construct this spinning rock.
Sure.
No one threw the sun into its position. We can agree on that part.
Absolutely.
But it's here. And when you look at how it's designed, we all engineers, you too. We engineers, we build things.
That's true.
And to build a platform, it takes a lot of planning and design. capacity planning, all of this. And I remember one stat I saw that if you take, and I don't know if it's true, but it sounds cool. If you took every human in the world, 9 billion people, put them shoulder to shoulder, they would fit in Texas. Shoulder to shoulder, they would fit in Texas. We got all this other land. And so you're like, damn, do the earth got enough resources to sustain life? Obviously it does. There's enough water, there's enough sunshine, there's enough stuff growing for everybody. So why is everybody not eating? Then you start to get into the complexities of it all. Someone wants to come in and be like, yo, this is my water. And you can't drink here. And then you start to get into this weirdness. So when it comes to this job situation, yeah, you watching people report record earning profits. You like, hey, typically when you get more profits, you try to grow and hire more people. But these days, people's like, yo, we don't really need all these people to keep the profits going. Slice it. And we haven't got to that part of society where, as technical people, we've been trained to say, if we can automate this away, we used to have that phrase, I'm going to automate myself out of a job. Why? Because there was a better job behind it. We like that.
Yeah.
But imagine someone figures out a way where nobody in the world has to write code again. Just imagine that. What happens to all the developers making 6 figures?
Why?
Reset. Where they going?
Figure something out?
We haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, I don't know what that thing would be.
We haven't figured out a world where we can run hyper efficient. Right? What's the phrase? If you don't work, you don't eat. That don't make sense when you're in a hyper productive world. And I remember being in the Uber one time, and me and the lady had different politics. Let's put it that way. And I didn't initiate the discussion. She just looked in that rearview mirror. She was like, she just asked me this political question about, what do you think about basic income? And I thought to myself, I said, okay, I see where we're going. You don't think it's right. And maybe you're right. I said, let's rephrase this whole thing. Let's say you had the national debt in the U.S. is $34 trillion, right? That's the national debt. We don't have to go too deep into it. But I asked her, what if you had $10 trillion liquid cash of your own money? You ain't got to raise taxes from nobody. You ain't got to borrow from nobody. You don't have to vote on Congress, nothing. It's just your $10 trillion. Would you let everybody eat for free? With your own $10 trillion. She struggled with that. That if you struggle with, would you do it? What you gonna spend $10 trillion on? You can buy everything with the interest on $10 trillion. So I think the biggest struggle right now is that there's so many factors in that pie. So even if there was enough pie, it's for sale. And everybody can't afford it right now. That's what makes this challenging.
Got you. Okay. I can accept that answer. The other pattern that I thought you highlighted that I think is critical to say, when you were talking about your mother and her getting that touch type and going through the training, you highlight a pattern. This pattern is something you speak on a lot, and I don't feel like people get it. What did she do in that situation? She was presented with a problem. She was in a situation where the stakes were high. She has to provide for her child. She went to the library or whatever facility, I forgot you said it was. She got a book. She read that book. She bought the equipment, and she went to work. That's the pattern. You get the educational material. You go in, you focus, and you do the work you need to do, and then you come out of it with some sort of skill that then you have to test and practice. And you say that over and over again. And then everybody that I'm talking to, that I mentor, that asks me, what do I need to do to get into tech? This piece seems to not click for a lot of them. The amount of work it takes to actually, on your own, if you want to, on your own, without going to school, acquire skills that are marketable, that then you can use to make your way in the world. I'd love for you to speak more to that pattern.
All right. Yeah, so look, I'm glad you brought up that pattern, because that is kind of my life story, is about the grind. And the reason why I was always careful not to over-index on it, there's a lot of luck that go into it. And I didn't ever want people to think that I'm just simply working harder than them is why I am where I am. I just always try to be careful about it. But you're right. None of the luck even works without that kind of work. And so the part where we say, I always ask myself, like, are my skills where they need to be? And it's hard not to compare yourself to other people, but I kind of let that part go a long time ago. And I used to just think, I just need to be in the top 10,000 in the thing. So let's just put that in context. You worked at HashiCorp. They got products like Terraform, Packer, and Vault. And so if you think about companies, there's probably millions of companies in the world. Hundreds of thousands of them might be a customer of Vault at some point. So if you just thought about that math, and if you was in the top 10,000 in the whole world at Vault, number one, it's hard because you got to go beat Mitchell and Armand. That's hard. Mm-hmm. So top one is kind of, but when you start to think about the top 10,000, so how do you separate yourself from being in the top 10,000? Mentally, I would say, let me just go to GitHub where those projects are hosted. Who are the contributors to Vault? It ain't 10,000 people. The moment you become a contributor to Vault, you start to stand out. You might be contributor number 7,234. But you in the top 10,000, and the world can see. So you last on the contributor list, but you in the top 10,000. And it could be documentation. It could just be answering questions when people say, hey, I'm new to Vault. How do you do this? And so to me, it's like, oh, once you top 10,000, easy. Because it's not usually 10,000 people trying to do that. Most people give up because they can't be number one. Most people give up because they can't be in the top 10, so they don't try at all. But when you just show up and just do more than the average, you end up in that scenario. And going back to your pie, maybe the pie isn't millions of people working on Vault. It's definitely bigger than 10,000. So I think this is how we try to find that, okay, so what I got to do to be in that top 10,000. And I would just look at the thing, what are my friends doing? That's not the right activities. And I will land that bar. But there's another thing you brought up that was dope. I was just at lunch today. We at Render ATL, the nice conference out here in Atlanta. And I got to go to lunch with my daughter and two people that I only know from the internet, Mark and Natalie. And I was just asking them about how they came up into the game. And Natalie said something dope. She was like, I'm working in retail. And I was a bit delusional. And I was like, in my 30s, I wanted to be a software engineer. And I decided to make the pivot. And Mark said something which I thought was great. He's like, it's not delusional. It's just more about kind of like having high standards for yourself, having goals, and then working towards it. And I'm just listening, and I had to pause for a second. I said, you know what? Delusional might be the right word. And Mark said, why? I said, the thing is, for some of our backgrounds, we don't know no one that's a software engineer.
We talk about that often.
And that means there's no one in your circle that has ever seen one. So when you show up and start saying, I'm going to be one, they may think that's delusional. And the reason why that word is so important, we're all presented who we should be by your family, by your school, by your HR department. This is who you are. And for many people, it's just an illusion or a stereotype, and you're asked to fit it. And if you don't, then you're being delusional. You're literally going counter to what has been presented to you. These are your options. Now I want to be that. It's like, yeah, that's not in the school. That's what I can't see for you. So how can you see it for yourself?
How do you typically advise people to go about finding, I don't want to say finding that delusion, but finding that ability to imagine themselves? Do you find that that's innate to people, that either you have it or you're just willing to make that switch? Or is that something that can be coached into people as well?
I don't know, man. I just think this is where the community, your people, your friends, if they're honest with you, that's what they do. Or I was giving a talk, probably my 300th talk in my life, just a few weeks ago. I'm sitting here trying to man, it's got to be perfect this time. It's got to be better than the other 299. It has to be, right? Because that's what people may be expecting. That's what I'm expecting. That's at least what I'm thinking. So you trying to figure out, should I use slides this time, even though I don't normally use slides? Should I change up my vocabulary? I probably need some new stories. And I'm tripping. And then what I realize is that when you try to overly script these things, y'all have given talks before. Mm-hmm. When you overscript it, then you just basically lock yourself to the track and you just got this roller coaster. And you hope people like it. And I remember having to remind myself the night before because I was going to pull an all-nighter. I was like, you know what? I can stay up to at least 2 a.m. Get 6 hours of sleep, I'll be good. I was like, nah, I'm going to go to bed on time. And I just had to say one phrase, and I kept saying to myself, why are you afraid to be great? Just leave a little room for greatness. People say, what does that mean? I said, man, look, when we got the NBA Finals going on right now. You can't pre-script the whole game. You got your plays, you got your plan, but when you down by 12, You got to make adjustments. And that leaving room for greatness is that you show up and you ready for whatever happens. And then sometimes great things happen. That's why when we watch the highlights and we all be blown away, it's like, I can't believe he did that. Because there's room for greatness. So I was like, you know what? I've been preparing my whole life to be at this point. When I go on stage, I just left a little room. And it seems to come together because you're prepared because of that grind. Making sure my skills are where they need to be. Making sure that I'm actually reading some of the white papers. I'm asking those questions. And I'm being honest with myself and providing that feedback loop.
You're saying a lot of things that I think are very important. You use the term delusion. And I think that delusion is not a terrible term at all. I think you need to be a little delusional. And I think that what that gives you, because society has said this is the way, so you have to have a little delusion up front to be like, I don't think that's the way. But then what that delusion empowers you to have is some audacity. You got to have a little audacity to go out there and be your authentic self in front of whoever, in front of yourself. If you're going to say in your 30s that I'm going to be a software engineer, you're a bit audacious. What in the world? Like, people look at you like, what do you think you're doing potentially? Yet you did the thing. So like when I'm talking to people ask me similar questions. I was like, what? Even at my work right now, I'm talking to these groups of professionals. They're younger in their careers. And it's a lack of confidence that is being displayed as a symptom. As I'm talking to them, like, y'all just don't got enough audacity. Like, know who you are. Like, put your chest out. You are this. You have these skills. People come to you because they need answers to questions. Yeah. That's who you are in this role. Be that. And don't be afraid to be that. Don't apologize to be that. Like, this is tangible. But the work that you're saying, all that audacity and delusion means nothing without the work. And the problem that I see happens is that if you don't do the work and you have the other ones, well, people just, you look foolish a lot of the time. But if you don't do the work, the more tangible threat to me is time will pass, because that's how opportunities happen. Time passes, then opportunities present themselves. Because you lack the work, you weren't able to capitalize on the opportunity.
And, I find that really interesting because it kind of goes back to that game that you was talking about. Like, game just don't represent a person you're interested in trying to talk to them. But part of that chest poking, part of that knowing that you belong here is part of that game. It's part of that understanding that I have done the necessary work. I deserve to be a part of this community. And I think that's what's so interesting about your point with being part of open source communities. Because if I'm hooping, I get live feedback on my game immediately. Like you mentioned, like if that's weak and it gets tossed to the crowd, hey man, I need to adjust. I did not work hard enough at this. I got to find another angle. If I'm in, like we talk about that audacity, that delusion, you locking yourself in that room for however long you were while you were studying to get that's delusion. But to that point, there's no immediate feedback outside of, okay, I think I understand this set of rules and this language. I test out this language. All right, cool. It worked. I think I have confidence here. But there's no live feedback with people in that same thing. So a person may have confidence in their own skill set. Like, I think that when I sit down at my desk after I've accepted this piece of work, that I can complete the work, but I may not feel comfortable talking to other people about it. I may not feel comfortable expressing my thoughts on how we can advance it. How do you think a person can garner that ability and faith in their skills? Because that's the missing piece oftentimes. We all know developers who are brilliant. Their brains just spin on a different axis than other people. But they oftentimes struggle to communicate those things to other people. How do you feel, or how can a person in that same situation kind of grow towards making themselves understood in this means of by others around them?
There's that phrase, don't be safe. So, when you're a kid, you go to the backyard, you watch the game. And I grew up, my stepdad Nigerian. There's only one team you rooting for. Houston Rockets. Hakeem Olajuwon. Yeah. The fact that they won 2 championships back to back. You know how many VHS tapes I had to record? When he was at work, he said, hey, when I'm getting back, I'm watching the game.
Yeah.
And so you watch the game, and the safest thing you can do is play NBA Live, where you play in the virtual world, You put the settings on easy. You killing them.
Dream shake.
Dream shaking. You ain't missing the shots.
Everything going.
You 100% from the field. Yeah. Then you go to your backyard by yourself. Nobody guarding you. You just to the hole. You do a little countdown. 3, 2, swish. And you ain't go in, but in your mind. And so that's the safe thing you can do. And then one day you get the courage, like, no, I'm finna go to the park. And you watching everybody hoop, and they're a little bigger, they're a little stronger. They've been out here. You can tell they come out here all the time. And it's your turn to play. You don't know that this ain't the NBA, ain't no referee. And you get in there, you're like, yo, I've been practicing my little dream shake. Bro, you 4'3". Dream shake don't work.
Yeah, there's an elbow in you.
Yeah, it don't work for real unless you. And so then you get that feedback loop. But it's like, don't be safe, and I get why people are afraid. Because, like, you know, when I'm experimenting with some new technology, sometimes I'll dabble and maybe ask a question, like on social media. It's like the worst thing you could do. Hey, I just read this. Is this true? The worst of us will be like, how dumb are you? Don't you work at Google? Why are you asking dumb questions? And I was like, well, I learned to ignore that part. And the really helpful people show up. You're like, hey, I get that you can't be smart in every domain in the world. So what they'll do is pick a ball and say, hey, Kelsey, you know how you work on this other thing? Let me explain it in those terms. Gotcha. And I level up real quick. And then people say, hey, why do you do that? It's like, dude, I'm not trying to level up in 3 years. I'm trying to level up in 3 days. And the fastest way I found to do it is just ask the questions, filter out the BS, and then just grow from the answers and the feedback. So just not being safe is uncomfortable. It ain't easy. But once you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, man, you get to learn much faster than everybody else.
Superpower. It's a superpower. There's one thing, because a pattern. You said the first pattern. We said the high-level pattern, y'all. We're trying to document it for y'all. The high-level pattern. Educate yourself. Do the work.
And apply the education.
Apply the education. I'm really keen to hear an example from you recently about your specific process with a technology that you're like, I don't know anything. I'm starting from zero. I went from zero to Kelsey.
And you know, the dope thing is I get to advise a lot of startups. And what they'll do is they'll show me something that they'll have. Or they'll say, hey, Kelsey, you know, we know you come from like the infrastructure space, config management, maybe Kubernetes. And then they'll show me something different. They'll be like, yo, this is like a service mesh. And so I'll listen to them. I was like, okay, what are you doing? It's like, well, you know, we got this way of putting these sidecars and introducing all these new terms. And I'm sitting there like, yo, bro, like that's an alphabet soup. I can see why it's hard to get any adoption when you confusing people. And so the thing I like to do is like, what are we doing without that? People are just using Nginx. Okay, Nginx, I understand. So here's what I'm going to do. I know how to have a website run behind Nginx. It's pretty straightforward. Here's what the config file looks like. Then I translate the thing I already know with the new thing. So let's take Envoy or Istio. And I just want to do something simple. I just want to put a website behind it and do all of these things I'm doing with Nginx. I just want to do it with Istio. I have a redirect, so when people type in the wrong endpoint or URL and it lands here, I redirect it to the right one, right? Little things like that. So I understand it in one domain, and I just do it in the other. And that way I can just sit back and say, it's like I got this translation. A lot of people learn a language that way, right? Here's how you say car in Spanish, right? And then people start connecting the dots. And so then once I kind of get those translations going, I was like, okay. And that's the second question. What can this do that this can't do? Why am I even wasting time deep diving on this new thing? There has to be some benefit here. And then the moment someone shows me, well, Nginx can't do, it's so funny because that list ain't long, right? Nginx may not have a programmable API. It may not be able to stream configuration to 10,000 sidecars. All right, so then we started to get into like, why is that important? Well, if you're using Kubernetes, you have a big cluster. Kubernetes or Nginx may be up for the task. We could also pull data from Kubernetes itself. So I'm looking at this as like, you know what? That is different, but it ain't new. So then what I'll do is go and figure out, can I make Nginx do those things too? And that's when I start having those little GitHub repositories like Motorboat, which takes Nginx and glues it to Kubernetes to try to give it some of that functionality. because I know that world. I learned what it couldn't do, and I just try to take that delta and make it come to life. Once I'm done with those, I ask one last question. When should I not use the new thing? Then the list of people who can answer that starts to dwindle. Then you start to get to the actual pragmatic people. It's like, look, if all you're doing is serving websites, stick with Nginx. This is only valuable in this particular context. So once I'm armed with that, you might see me go do a talk or something. I'm ready now. I go to a meetup and say, hey, I just learned about Istio last week. Here's what I found. I'm coming from Nginx, so we're going to start with that example, and we're going to convert it to Istio. Y'all see that? Now, here's what I like about this. Here's what I don't like. So what I decided to do was port this functionality to Nginx. I got a little prototype I want to show y'all. In closing, here's where I think the future is going to go. I don't think this is going to work out for these reasons. Most people don't need this. And you can just do a little bit of glue, and we can go make this do what that can't do. And that's been my process for everything. Any piece of technology, the saying goes, typically things aren't reinventing the wheel, they just rhyme with the past. And so I just pay attention to that. It's like, oh, this is probably closer to what came before than most people know. That's been my formula for like 10 years.
I think that's interesting in the thought of constant relation to what we know. Find the parallel, find what runs us alongside of it, and you can continue to have your reference point as you move through it. Because like I'm a guest here in the super technical world, so when we start talking names, and I like this, like my favorite reference is from Good Burger when Kelsey, like, I know some of these words. That's exactly how I feel during a lot of these conversations. But to that point is I can take from it is find that North Star, find that regular thing that if I can continue to compare it, because nothing's news under the sun. Everything is just a reimagined, reviewed way of that original thing. And now you can find practicality in whatever the new thing is.
I want to try something right now.
Talk to me.
My goal is to get you to never say you're not technical. You're a guest in technology.
Fair.
And if I can get you to do that for the rest of your life, it's important.
Yeah.
And the way I used to do it with engineers, I'd be like, you take the best software developer you know, type the fastest to. And you say, they got their computer up, you say, you ready? It's like, yeah, I'm ready. And I say, build it. They look at you in confusion. They say, what? That's how you know that this tech game is more than typing code.
Fair.
This part of what to do is almost the most technical thing you can do. When we look at these buildings, we name them after the architect, not the person that put up the drywall.
Sure.
You don't even know who put up the drywall, but we know who designed the building. All that's technical. And so when I think about, like, what does it mean to be technical, it's so important that people know that this whole process is, my daughter's getting into tech now. And I'm like, people ask me, like, you want her to be a software engineer? I say, oh, yeah. But I would like her to progress to the person that the software engineers work for. Right? Because it's just one part of the puzzle.
Sure.
So if I can get you to, everybody listening to this, if you in the tech game and you come up to a conversation, I'm not technical, it's like, you probably are. Because the whole world is getting really excited about the dream of building stuff without writing any code. When ChatGPT came out, people got real excited because we can use natural language to make things happen. And so think about it. You tell ChatGPT, build me a website to sell shoes. And it goes and gets some templates and it generates something. You'd be like, that's dope. And you look at ChatGPT almost like a god. Mm-hmm. If you're a product manager or a PM, you've been doing prompt engineering for a long time.
True.
Via Jira tickets.
Very true.
We need feature X. You put a prompt in there. And somehow the feature come out the other end. What's the difference?
Absolutely nothing.
Man, I love her. I'm getting hyped. I'm over here. Look at my hand. I'm getting hyped. No, it's funny you brought it up. I think it's great. A great segue into AI, which I want to talk to you about. I just want to wrap up this career point because I feel like it's very valuable for people with one question, which is, if Kelsey is talking to someone 18 to 25 or whatever, at any transitionary period in their life career-wise, and you had to give them the most useful advice for how to handle that transition and attack it, what would you say?
And the only thing that really worked for me long term was it's going to be all right. Like, seriously. You're going to apply for that job and you ain't going to get it. It's going to be all right. You're going to buy that book on the piece of technology you ain't going to understand on the first read, maybe even the third one. And you could choose to give up. That's up to you. That's totally your choice. But the truth is you're going to get it eventually because that's just how this actually works. It just takes time. And so if you get to the point where you know it's going to be all right, then I need you just to keep trying, whatever the part is. Because like the advice would be, learn skills. Which one? You'll learn Python, Ruby, Golang, Java, Rust, Swift. Which one you want to learn? Don't matter because it's going to be all right. If you start with Python and you go hard and you learn what your variables are, you learn how to do dependency injection, you know how to write unit tests, you know how to do your builds, you know how to do your deployments, and then you get a new programming language, is Go this time. There's no classes. There's no inheritance. It's a little different. But the deployments fundamentally are similar. The concept of writing the unit test is fundamentally similar. The concept of storing things in a variable and passing them on to functions is fundamentally similar. So if you learn those things, you're going to be fine. A lot of people get paralyzed on their choice. Man, I've been spending the last 3 months trying to figure out, should I learn Python or Go? I was like, bro, if you would have just picked any one of those, you would have had a head start on the other one. So that would be my number one advice. It's just going to be all right. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to pick the wrong job. Do I work here or do I work here? This one pay a little more. And you go in the first day, you're like, oh,
I see why it pays a little more.
I see. You got to wear suit with the suit jacket tucked in. You tuck in the suit jacket. What do you start doing now? With the belt on the outside? Then you can wear jeans on Friday.
I don't know if I could work there. You tucking the suit jacket.
So now you call your wife on lunch break like, babe, I know they pay more, but you think it's too late to take the... Yeah. But it's going to be all right. And so I think that's going to give you and to me, that matches reality. You're not going to make perfect decisions. People, they reach out for mentoring. And look, I used to try to give advice like I knew the answer. You know what you do first, you do this, you contribute open source, you pick up the meetups, and then boom, boom, boom. But now what I learned is like, you got to listen for a second and you got to take the mirror and like angle it at them so they can see themselves. And you got to convince them what they see is fine. Because they ain't looking at the whole thing. They're looking at somebody else. They're like, I want to be like this other person. I'm like, look, we all draw inspiration from others. There's nothing wrong with that. But when I show you this mirror, I don't want you to hide. I don't want you to start covering up like you don't even want to look. Because if you don't want to look at the mirror, why would you want anybody else? Who else want to look at you? So if you learn to look at yourself and like what you see, then you present yourself different. Like when people really, like when you got I remember we was watching this movie. It was a good movie. It was Monkey Man. It's like John Wick. But the India version, it was fire. Me and my daughter she into the movies. Yeah. So we watching the movie. The movie is legendary. And the villain, I'm not going to give no spoilers. The villain stepped off the helicopter. He clean. Yeah. His attire's fire. He had on these slippers, but it was made of wood with the lion on the top in between the toes. And I'm sitting there watching this and it's raining, the helicopter in there, fight scenes is going. And then the camera just hit him as he's stepping off the helicopter. Camera zoomed to the feet so you could see the hand-carved lion stuck between the toes. And I looked at my daughter, all she said was, he got that shit on. You couldn't tell him nothing. Because his confidence level, the way think about it. Yeah. Before he got into the helicopter, he had to get dressed for about 2 or 3 hours. Babe, what are slippers with the lion on it? I'm wearing those today. Yeah. You don't normally wear these. I got to wear them today, though.
I got it on.
And so when you got it on, you feel a certain way. Facts. Figure out what that is. And when you wear it, I can see it. You come in for the interview, be like, this is going to be my first tech job. It's like, did you just say this is going to, like you already got the job? Oh, I'm sorry, no disrespect, but I done read the job description 25 times. I've been doing mock interviews. On my GitHub right now, for everything y'all listed out in the job description, I got a prototype on GitHub. It may not be perfect, but I went all in for this interview. And look, I know I'm going to get a question or two wrong, but I promise you about to get the best version of me. They hit you with the first question. He's like, you know what? I'm so glad you asked that because that's the one I've been practicing. And you get out of the chair, you mind if I use the whiteboard? Most people scared of the whiteboard. It's like, no, I got that shit on today.
All right, so you brought up AI, so you know we're going to talk about it.
That's where we're going to get deep.
I'm excited. By the way, shout out to one of the sponsors of this video. My company, Darktrace. We do AI, cybersecurity, everything from email, basically detect and respond, preventative security, applying kind of this AI-based approach. But it's very different than the AI that you're speaking of. And that's one of the things I want to talk about because AI has become this catch-all term that covers LLMs, traditional machine learning, all of the different approaches and ways you can deploy AI, like natural language processing. Like we group all these things under AI, and some of them are all put together and combined in different ways to come up with a different name. It's confusing for a lot of people. So my first real question is for you, your general thoughts on where we are as a society on AI, maybe what's most relevant, what's not, and your overall thoughts on just where we are.
I mean, look, I worked at Google for almost 8 years. And so ML is just everywhere. It's in your Google Maps. It's in your Gmail, the thing that tries to look at your email and says, this is spam. And there's this criteria, right? So you kind of look at the email header, you look at the body, who is addressed to, and you decide that it's spam. And if you train long enough, you do a good job of putting things in the spam folder. But you also realize it's just a prediction because some important stuff end up in the spam folder. And you got to go in there and tell it, yo, this thing's spam. And the moment a human goes in and tells the machine, this isn't spam, in many ways you're kind of doing this enforcement training of, maybe that domain is a good domain because 5 people have said this isn't spam. And so now the classifier can be updated and now we have new data to train things. So I looked at ML as like a programming technique. And I think for people that struggle with ML, one way to think about this is when you're writing code for the first time, not even Python, let's just go to shell scripting. Right? A lot of us cut our teeth on just SSH to the server and you just run your little bash commands. Right? Like I want to find an error message in the log. You grep, double quotes, the thing you want to look for. And then that gets used as an expression to go find the different lines in the log and only show you the ones so you can find it. Even if there's a million lines in that log file, you give it this expression. And usually it's just like a subset of the whole string. But then the first time as a developer, you learn regular expressions, it blows your mind. It ain't if-else statements. If this character, then look at the other. That's not how you do regular expressions. If you want to match hello, you might be very rigid. H star, 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 O. So you'll catch all forms of it. But what if there's a lowercase or a capital in the front, right? So then you may say, I'll take anything in any case. So when you learn regular expressions, you got this kind of data pipeline that I can send something through it and it's going to pattern match. And for a lot of people, it blew their mind how regular expressions work. It's a very powerful technique. The same is true of like SQL. Selects from the database where name equals, and this thing goes into this machine that finds out exactly on disk where this information is and passes it to you. For a lot of people, ML is the same way. And the way I try to think about understanding ML is, at least with the chat GPT stuff. So finding the shortest path, these are things you use for like Google Maps, the various classifiers to do these predictions. But then you get to LLMs and all of a sudden, the common person is super excited about AI. And you're like, why are people so hyped this time? Because you got it everywhere else. The traditional ML stuff that you're talking about is everywhere. But why now? And it goes back to something we were talking about earlier. Humans are very sophisticated. You can tell your child, go clean your room. That's it, one prompt. Don't matter how dirty the room is. It don't matter if there's Legos on the floor, teddy bears on the floor. They're going to know what to do. Especially if you show them once, they have a model of the world, and that's all they need. And then when you see LLMs do something similar, and especially things when it can generate things that you can't do. I can't draw. So if I can type into a prompt, give me a cat that played for the Oakland Raiders, I can't do that. But this thing spits it out. you're going to be amazed by that, because that to you is a form of intelligence, even though it's artificial.
Sure.
And then zooming out, and you use it like a library, language translation, generate this image, generate this Python code for me, generate this HCL for me. And you look at that and you're like in awe, like, wow, this must be the future. This thing can do what I can't do. And so we put a lot of stock into it. But when I look at all this LLM stuff, I'm looking at the stuff that it's generating. You generate an email to me. So you didn't have enough time to think about what you want to say to me. You let ChatGPT do the speaking for you. Why do I want to read that? You're not even talking to me. You won't even look at me in the eye when you talk to me. But I'm supposed to read this and do what? Should I respond with ChatGPT? So now we're just doing empty messages back and forth. So I'm starting to look at the things it's generating, and I'm asking myself, like, why are we even doing that stuff? If it's that tedious. So when I look at it generating code, in my mind, shouldn't we have better libraries? Because you think about what a human needs to do, you need to make some decisions.
Sure.
What color should the website be? Red or blue? Right? That's a decision. Today, you got to be like CSS, style sheet, open file, body, color, colon, hashtag, color, make sure it's there. Oh, there's a div in the way. This is what you have to do to get the color to be that way.
Absolutely.
But as a human, you should be like, I just want the background to be red.
Yeah.
So what's the programming language for that? So when people see LLMs, I kind of look at it that way, but it says not that LLMs are magical, because the process is already needs to be improved. So my guess is that there'll be better libraries that say website background color equals red. And it's just going to do what's necessary to make the browser do that. So that's the way I look at the whole LLM movement. And then again, I like to just get deeper with this and say, look, that's going to work. There's going to be some utility. Great. But boy, you have a model too. It's patterned after us, right? So we train these models with billions of dollars. We give them all these GPUs, all of this data, and we are awe that they get better over time. And then people just sit there and be like, man, this thing's going to take my job. And I look at them, I say, yeah, if you think that's what your job was, where's your training? Have you tuned your model in a while? Are you re-examining your data sets? How many times have you just say, no, I need to take a few days off to tune my model so I can approach these problems with better accuracy? People ain't really putting that much into real intelligence. So I'm just hoping that people look at this whole AI movement and say, yes, tools, give me a better interface. So if you got a security product, I don't know. I'd rather just tell you that these two apps need to talk together, let them communicate back and forth for a couple of days, and from that alone, you should be able to generate the firewall rules. Why am I clicking around the firewall? I don't know, bro. This endpoint and this endpoint need to talk to each other. These are the things they need to say to each other. What more do you want from me? That should be enough to tell you what ports, deep packet inspection, anything that doesn't look like this payload should be rejected. You can do all of that in your firewall just from watching two things communicate over time. When they start saying new things, you can put that into alert mode. Hey, they're talking about things we haven't seen before. Now we're going to drop it, or maybe we put it in alert mode. That can be my configuration, and then I can train it. Hey, they're supposed to be doing that. And I hit the button, and then it goes and updates all the firewall rules again. That's the way I think about what AI is. It's just a better interface to the current tools we have, but I hope people spend more time on their model too.
See, I love that perspective. Because your tweets sometimes, I don't know. I don't know what you were thinking about it. You tweet stuff, and I'm like, does Kelsey like AI? Is Kelsey anti-AI? I don't know. But just so I'm understanding you, let me try and repeat it back.
I'm pro-human. When people get excited, when I was growing up, the last thing you wanted was the artificial one. You want the real one. The real one costs more.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk around with the sophisticated computer you born with. You can eat about 1,000 to 2,000 calories a day to run it. For some people, that might be some boiled eggs, some steamed rice, some broccoli, and some orange juice. And then they can do all these amazing things. You can predict, like, I'm on this side of town at night with all this gold on, I might not make it through. Let me tuck mine in. because your model of the world is just that clear. You know what to do. No one got to tell you that. You can just see what's happening.
Yeah.
And so, like, to me, that's important. So I'm pro-human. So when I see a bunch of humans giving all this glory to AI, but they don't care about nobody else. They ain't called to check on the cousin. They ain't looked at where they were with their skill set. All they happy to do is like, man, I can't wait to wake up and have ChatGPT tell me what to do tomorrow.
Yeah, that's wild. And I do fear that component. I agree, and I've always thought of LLMs, ChatGPT, as an amazing augmentation tool. But that, to me, is assuming that you're worth augmenting.
Mm.
Yeah. If you don't have the skill set, if you aren't able to or even articulate what you want, what's going to happen is all the humans that are willing to do that, and it's going to end up being these large corporate entities, are going to tell it what you want for you. And then you're going to just get the defaults from this that are going to run your life in ways that you now don't have control over. To me, that's the scary state. I want augmentation, but even if you really interact with ChatGPT at a high level now, like I've done some pretty serious testing with it, you have to be able to write well. You have to be able to speak well. You have to be able to articulate the ideas of exactly what you want, the way that you want. And then you can say that in human language and it spits out something very fast, which is pretty amazing. But you, to your point, you can't stop tuning your model or else you're not even worth augmenting. You're just going to be grouped in with everyone else who's going to be experiencing AI.
I think it's a large part of the difference between being a creator and a consumer. I think, unfortunately, a large part of the population has been trained to be a consumer. So like you mentioned, they see these LLMs and go, I can't wait to see what it can do for me and how it can make this easier. Where the other percentage of creators are going, I can't wait to see what I can build with it. It's a tool. Now, does the tool pacify and make you comfortable? Or does the tool say, okay, I can go break that wall down. There's more to do. There might be another tool that makes this tool look like it's not even worth having once I break that wall down. But I kind of appreciated what you mentioned about the difference of like the self-update. And I think that kind of goes into that creator-consumer discussion too. Because if a person is concerned, oh man, this AI is going to take my job, it's here. Because that was even a thing, like, because at first, as a civilian, so to say, or a regular individual might hear it and go, oh, it's coming. And they don't realize that AI has been here, for, like you mentioned, for a very long time. They've been using these predictive models to change your entire life. And then the developers just say, well, they'll always need somebody to write those things. And then they found out that it's writing itself, or someone's prompting it to do your job. But what's the next state? Is it, oh, man, that's it?
So on one hand, democratization is nice. The first time I got some clip art, right? You need a little logo. Mm-hmm. You just select from the clip art because I can't afford to pay an artist. Mm-hmm. I have no artistic skills. It's real nice that I have clip art. And so when you think about generative AI being just the ultimate form of clip art, where you can say, I have a landscaping business, my favorite team has these colors, and I'm an alpha. And it generates something. You know how long that would take to really work with a talented artist to be able to pull that off? And the price for that kind of work has gone way down, Fiverr and, paying people $10. So if I can do that for like 50 cents and get a brand and I can tweak it, tune it, I think that's kind of dope. Like, that's pretty nice. That's very empowering because I'm just trying to focus on the landscaping business I'm trying to start. I don't want to become an artist first, but I know I got to have some brand. And you know how we are. You see somebody with a terrible brand, you like, bro,
I'm good.
Is that your logo?
Yeah.
Why is it pixelated?
Yeah.
Wrote you off immediately.
Absolutely.
And then it'd be ironed on a T-shirt.
Sheesh.
You like, dude, why? You could have paid $3 more for the screen printing, bro. They got you. So we know that sometimes if I can get my presentation better, it is very empowering to have people be able to do that component. But again, I think the other side of it is we start trending to the same. Like, music is this way. You hear a new artist, they got that sound. You're like, yo, I love the Migos. 2 years later, I can't tell if it's the Migos or not. Because everybody say, okay, if that's the new sound, we're all going to start doing it. And then it's like, okay, if what these things are generating becomes a standard, there's always somebody that wants to be on the other side of that equation. Like, look, I want to be the thing it learns from.
Exactly.
So it raises the bar. Why, when you see somebody master a technique, He's like, okay, if that's the new bar. I watch these kids play Tetris competitively. Some people just play the normal style. Up, down, left, right, A, B. You flipping the bricks. And it turns out, technically, you can only go so far. And Tetris is programmed that most people will never make it to level 20 playing with the original NES controller. It's not going to happen. So they didn't really program too much more of the game beyond a certain point because they know you can't get there. Even the numbers don't fit. You will never see those kind of numbers. Then some kids started putting the controller on their knee and rolling.
Yes.
Right? They're rolling with their fingers so they can get exponentially more taps per thing. So they're looking at the pieces and then they just roll it a couple of times. And now they're flipping screens. And then I saw this last technique they were doing. It's not rolling. Someone came with a better technique than that. And these dudes got to the point where they make the game glitch. You can make Tetris glitch. So they never lose.
Yeah.
They just got this technique that just keeps going. And the game, back then they were programming these games in assembler. It only has so much memory. And they corrupt the game. So that they're at the point is like, who can now last the longest?
Yeah.
And when you get the game corruption, they know like, man,
that's the real dove.
This is where we're at right now. So to me, it's like, that's what I mean by looking at LLMs as kind of a starting point. It can potentially raise the boat for a lot of people, just like encyclopedias did at one time, just like YouTube did at one time. I would look at this kind of as I was explaining to somebody, it was like a dynamic Wikipedia. Wikipedia is static. It gets updated from time to time. Hopefully it's truthful. And I think the biggest challenge you said what's going forward is these models are only as good as the data set. You ask it a question, it answers with confidence, even when it's wrong. And we just say it's hallucinating. But there's some things in life that need to be actually correct.
Yeah.
So how do we get to the point where society has like a global knowledge base that we trust? Because everything don't need a prediction. What is his name? I don't need the LLM to predict your name. Your name is your name. And so these things will definitely reach out to some knowledge base, these kind of augmented data stores that have facts in them.
Yeah.
I think factual data that can be attested for would become super valuable, right? Because now it's going to be a race to the truth. What is the truth? And then where do we store it?
You actually answered, or partially answered the question I was thinking about coming with next. But in regards to our community, lower income communities, do you see this influx of AI, whether it's large language models like ChatGPT, kind of being a hindrance? Because that's a large concern that a lot of people have, whether it's like the uses of AIs for modeling, whether they're shopping or habits or things of that nature, because the models have to come from somewhere, opposed to a large language model. And the way that you kind of mentioned it, allow a person that doesn't have large means of capital to scale, but it allows for productivity. Or what ways, I guess I'll ask, do you see this type of technology advancing opportunity?
So we're in the early stage. We're in the stone age of this right now. Or in the chat, something in the chat bot, and it comes out, and it's like, whatever. But when this stuff, and I'm talking about the entire ML landscape, gets embedded to our tools, that's when we start seeing the game changer. For example, you're a barber. You doing that fade, got the adjustable clippers, you hitting it, you killing it. But it always nick at a certain level. And so you got to go put on a guard and lower it just to get the right blend that you go for. That's your signature. And you be like, man, if I can design a clipper, it's going to be way more ergonomic. It's going to have, instead of 5 notches, it's going to have 8. And because I don't want to be switching these guards. It'll take too long when you got a lot of clients, right? That's your vision as a barber. You know the job to be done. You went through every clipper in the game. You got all this information. Your model of what a clipper should be is tight. You know how it cut, different types of hair. You know what the blade should be. You know the difference between this particular metal versus this ceramic versus metal. You know how it cut. You can feel it.
Yeah.
And then let's imagine if I gave you a newer version of AutoCAD that said, take a picture of the clipper, and then I'm going to give you a fully rendered, ready to edit clipper in AutoCAD. And if you just move the lever 3 more notches, I'll recalculate the whole thing to make sure that it's reproducible, to have those 3 extra notches on it. And when you hit save, we can send it to the people who manufacture clippers. So you went from a barber to a person designing clippers.
Yeah.
Everybody got access to the tool, but everybody hasn't been a barber for 15 years.
Absolutely.
So that thing you produce, people are going to be like, man, something about these clippers. They designed by people who actually cut hair. My guess is some of these clippers are designed by people who don't cut hair.
No.
They just like, yo, we're going to do what walls do. That to me is the biggest game changer because you start to democratize it. We already seen this before. Look what language did, right? I learned English, I can rhyme. We selling records now.
Yeah.
Right? We got auto check, spell check. We got these things that can help us format. I got Pro Tools. I can do Pro Tools at the house. I couldn't afford to go to the studio before.
Yeah.
Now I can buy this M audio box and sit it on the desk.
Yeah.
I'm in the game. Look how many podcasts we have now. You could buy a podcast kit for $200 and you on YouTube killing them.
Yep.
So that's the one thing we do like about technology. It tends to democratize.
Lowers the barrier of entry.
It lowers the barriers of entry. We still got to do something with it. But boy, isn't it nice that not having a lot of money isn't the only hurdle no more.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think all of this stuff, when you put it into the tool format, can be leveraged and democratized so people can, try more things than they could before.
So, I like that point, and then it makes me ask the question. You tweeted you ain't like that whole AI integration in a Microsoft product, right? Like, I'm not misquoting you. And so I'm like, to me, that's an example of AI being integrated deeply in our tools. I mean, we're engineers. This is our tool. We build with this. But you didn't like that.
There's a difference between me having a hammer in my toolbox versus you hitting me with the hammer. There's a difference. You know what I mean? So I got to dodge the one you throwing at me because that's not what I want you to use it for.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So a tool in my toolbox, I'm in control of. I reach for when I need it. So I'm saying the hammer should exist. I just don't want you to throw it at me. So that particular Microsoft announcement, a lot of people felt it was short-sighted. Hey, we got this new version of Windows. It's going to take a screenshot all day in the background. It's just capturing your screen. Some of y'all be looking at stuff that you don't want nobody to look at.
Facts.
Right? There might be things like checking your bank account or things you ain't ready to show the world.
Yeah.
And we know how data breaches go. So now that you're taking a screenshot every millisecond or every second, and you're stored in some location on my machine, we know anything could be hacked at this point. All of a sudden, all of my screen stuff is out floating around somewhere. Because now we're starting to give away too much of the freedom. I don't need you to take a screenshot of my thing. I'll hit the button when I want to. So if I really want you to have a screenshot going, let me hit the button. Don't do it underneath just in case I need it later. Like, that's the wrong contract. Yeah. And it's a lot of us that's going to click yes out of convenience. Yeah. When we watching these like dystopian sci-fi movies, you like, ain't nobody finna go for lining up, being rationed some soy and milk and just drinking it. He's like, nobody's going to ever do that. It's like, yes, they will. They'll pay for it. Yeah. They'll pay for it because the precursor to that is giving away everything else. You're giving away everything else to the point where you ain't thinking no more. Somebody asked me, well, like, where's your favorite X-Men character? We want to say the Wolverines. He dope. Yeah. You might go for Storm, what she can do. And I was like, you know what, man? I like Magneto. Because he put, at least in the movies, comic books be different, but in the movies, he put on the helmet. He was like, what you doing with the helmet? He's like, because y'all be controlling the way folks think. And when I'm out there doing what I'm doing, I need to know that I'm the one making decisions. Because the ones that don't have it, Professor X just be pulling the strings. And you have no idea if it's you or is it somebody else. So he respects his mind and what role it play in all of this. So when I see AI, I love it as a tool. I love it as an assistant. But when you take the accountability away, like this thing where people be experimenting with using AI to review job candidates. Yeah. Where do you think the data set come from? It's the same biased society we've been living in. Yeah. So let your name be something that the company has never hired for. You think your resume from the raise to the top? Absolutely not. You're going to be a statistical anomaly, and it's going to get rejected before anybody look at it. We don't want to automate that part. So when I think about a lot of this AI stuff, we are automating parts of society based on the data set that we've been producing this whole time. And so when you say we're just going to turn this stuff on by default, I don't like Siri being on by default.
Thanks.
I turn it on when I want it on. So that's what I meant by, so it's not like I don't like AI. It's cool. How we're using it, we getting carried away now. People need to take a moment and pause. What are we doing with these tools? And then what's the step after that?
See, I think there are some things that are just exceptionally human. There's a lot of things I'm okay with automating. A lot of things that I think humans as a whole probably hate, a large percentage of them, that are also associated with a lot of jobs. We can find ways around that, in my opinion. But you highlighted the example of hiring someone. That, to me, is a deeply human thing. And there are a lot of things like that to me are deeply human. Like, it requires me, with you, to talk to you, speak to you, listen to you, evaluate your qualifications. Like, I'm evaluating human. I don't think that AI is qualified to evaluate another human being. That's just a feeling that I have.
I think it's because you're a good person. It's because a lot of people would argue that the reason they put the technology in between is because history has told us a lot of people in the position to hire already are dealing with that same data set. They're already skewed. This is a name. This is a place. This is something that we've never seen before. So we're just going to push it right on out. The hope is, which I think is misguided, is that the technology, almost like the same way that blockchain acts as trust, is that the technology here will act as trust so that people's personal biases don't have the opportunity to jump, which should be a truthfully human experience in the process of talking, getting to know, and seeing how that person can be a fit to what you got going on.
But you know what's funny, though, is that there's a very popular tool or company, Weights and Biases. Those weights on the data set, you're literally tuning the model to be biased. That's what it is. So when I give you a bunch of cat pictures and dog pictures, I'm telling you how to identify the cats, I need you to be biased towards pixels in a certain arrangement. Those are cats. And when you get it wrong, I make you more biased and tell you those are cats. Like, no, it looks like a dog. I'm telling you it's a cat. And we're all biased. There's no way to make an ML model that's not biased. So we try to make it biased towards the law. We try to make it biased towards our culture. And the challenge, though, becomes is which biases we finna pick.
Exactly.
Which ones you want? Because we finna pick.
Who decides what biases we pick?
Yeah. So that's the accountability piece that I think is hyper important. That we don't want to delegate that away. But you're right. When it comes to like music, when I listen to music, I like the artists I could believe. Like
me too.
When an artist be like, I do all this, all. Well, Jay-Z had this dope line. What he say? He's like, we'll be on the streets. I don't see none of that. Those ain't Rolex diamonds. What the heck you done to that? And it's like, we don't want to hear somebody rapping about something that they ain't really doing. And if you're not really doing that, just rap about something else. It's okay.
That's okay.
And so I think when we listen to an artist, I like the artist. I like to know their backstory. I like to know that these lyrics came from somewhere. I remember when Maxwell came out, it was a different sound. I was like, I love his music. And I think he went a few years with no album. Everybody's like, where Maxwell at? And I think there was some interview he did. He was like, man, I had to live a little.
Mm-hmm.
What am I write about? I got to go fall in love again. I got to go experience the world. And then I can come back and do another album. And you would imagine that there's been enough albums written in time that you can generate any song you want. Like, sure you can. And I think humans may start to look at the usage of AI in some cases like we look at the usage of steroids. When we see somebody break the world record in the 100-meter dash, we respect it because we know we can't do that. We know how hard you got to train to do that and keep pushing that bar. And so when we see it, because we know sometimes these things happen once in a lifetime. And so we give it respect. But if everybody just, injecting themselves with a bunch of steroids and everybody running in 7 seconds, we might be like, man, I don't know how I feel about this. Is that the right trade-off?
I don't hit this.
And that you're saying what I'm thinking in a different way. I say that human part because I feel like the idealist in me, call me whatever. I feel like if AI can actually serve to automate those things that really take the humanity, in my opinion, away from us, then what can humans who are free to create and free to think actually do? You were speaking in another interview. A bunch of people ask you about your retirement. I'm not going to be better than them. I'm still going to ask you. But you said specifically multiple times in various ways that it gave you the ability to buy back your time, that you now had the space. And one of the questions you asked yourself was, if I had the space and time to myself, would I not be creative enough to figure out what to do with it? That's my question with AI too. For people, if we can automate the things that really none of us humans care to do ourselves, wouldn't humanity be creative enough to figure out how to fill that space with something amazing?
I mean, I think the challenge with all of this is just this one little gotcha. There's a part where you live on this side of the world and you got your house, you got your food, everything good. Health is good. I mean, it feels like perfection. And someone moves within eyesight. So maybe they're about, 200 yards away, but you still can see where they live. You see that they come and go. And when they build a house, it starts off, it looks just like yours. And you cool with it. Actually, when they come outside, they look just like you too. And you cool with it. Then one day, they paint their house red. You ain't really feeling that. Now, you don't have to look at the house. But every time you walk to your car, you can't help but see it because it's red. And on a sunny day, it shines bright. And so you like, man, I should go over there and say something. It's like, bro, why you paint your house red? And they looking at you like, yo, you don't pay no bills over here. I don't even feel obligated to have this discussion with you. I'm not trying to convince you that you should paint your house red too. So I'm not understanding what you want me to do right now. Should I get a approved list of colors? So what does that person do? They say, you know what? I got you. We finna make a law that says houses can't be red. So then they come back and say, yo, it's illegal to have a red house. You got to paint your house. So what do? It's now the law. Do you change the law? Do y'all fight? And whoever win the fight, make the new law, and now all houses got to be red because now you want to get even. Everybody's house got to be red. And that desire to do that, and we can apply that to any topic we want, but the desire for a person to look at somebody else and say, I don't like who you are, and we need to make some adjustments. To me, that's like the foundation for so many issues. So many people will vote against issues because they don't like the fact that you might be helped by this particular thing. And so that part, I think at some point, there's going to have to be a reflection on as a society. It's like, why are you so mad that somebody else is okay? Why does it bother you so much? Some people can't even sleep.
Intolerance and the desire to control.
Exactly. So if we figure out all the other stuff with AI or not, as long as that behavior is still here, then someone's going to take that AI and make you paint your house a different color.
I like that. It's human existence meets technology. It's the understanding that, and kind of like you might have mentioned that it being idealistic, but there's still issues to a lot of things that make it difficult to see only the positive that comes in a world without work, or world without responsibility to that degree, or a world without value add. When everybody's, currently speaking, the value we provide to society is often dictated by others. But in this world that you're referring to, when you're not punching in the clock and receiving the money back, if you don't have the typical roles and responsibilities you had before, that said, somebody said it's valuable by this metric, and here you go. Now it's up to me to decide what is valuable and how valuable it is. Until somebody sees that my house is red. Until somebody sees that the value I perceive this to be is indeed not valuable, and I need you to stop that now.
And here's the thing is, there's a lot of hypocrisy in all of this, is that I can't retire unless everybody else got to work. Because what does any of this mean if nobody going to keep the water running, the food growing? There's a lot of things that happen to us. I rely on so many systems to be working in order for to step off the hamster wheel. Because if everybody got off the hamster wheel at the same time, it collapses.
True.
And so that's where I kind of, I don't know, I'm just in observe mode. So there's a lot that I have to unlearn. There's a lot that I got to learn to appreciate, because you can't appreciate things you don't even know exist. So there's a lot of that's happening. So you're still trying to figure it out. You still want to be useful to yourself. You still want to be useful to people around you. The best phrase I heard to describe where I'm at right now is I'm retired, but I'm not tired. Right? It's not that I just want to go to the beach and just go away. Right? So just now I just got to refocus the energy on something else.
You talked about a lot of these interviews, because I want to give the people like the good stuff, because it's awesome you retired. I'm super happy for you. When you announced it, I was like cheesing on the other side of the phone. I think that's amazing. I think it takes a lot of discipline to even get to that position. Obviously, like you said, some good fortune, good situations that you're able to capitalize on. I'm really curious as to the mindset you feel, because I agree with you. It's going to be the minority of people probably that are actually going to do the work required and have the fortune to be able to retire as early as you did. But if you had to think and summarize as to what those key traits and focuses would be, the discipline you had to apply to get to where you are, what would you say those traits are?
I mean, look, you got to put in the work forever. Right? Like there ain't no just checkpoint.
Love that.
Yeah, put in the work forever. And so you're continuously just trying to make a slightly better version of yourselves. But see, the key is like that whole, love meets preparation, that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's kind of like just keep buying those lottery tickets. I literally don't want you to play lottery, so don't do that.
Not encourage gambling.
It's just a metaphor for life. So what is a lottery ticket? Going to the meetup, but giving the talk, because you're always interviewing. So my daughter was at the lunch table today, and somebody asked her, given what you know, where you want to be by the time you're 22, and she had this beautiful answer. I'm sitting there like, I was impressed.
Proud dad moment. That's my baby.
Well, because she had this thing together, and the two people, Natalie and Mark, was like, okay. And when lunch was over, when she walked out, I said, if you remember one thing, you're always interviewing. Those people will remember you. Y'all might cross paths 5 years down the road, but that's what they know about you right now, how you present yourself, all of these things. And so what I would tell people is that you're going to have to always kind of be contributing to that skill set. If you just look at professional athletes, you could be MVP this year. Let those numbers fall off. You may not be on the team. And I think not to scare you, but just to know that incremental improvement, and then let the world see. That would be my other one. So that's the other lotto ticket, is when the world can see you. A lot of people out here doing all the things we're talking about. They grinding, they putting in the work, but nobody can see them. So you hooping in the backyard, and nobody's seen you ever shoot before. How you finna make it to anything if no one has ever seen you play? So that whole being public so people can see you, to me, I think that was probably the biggest lotto ticket I ever bought. Going to those open source communities and just being in the Slack channel. I don't know how to code yet, but man, you just asked this question, I got an answer, and you just giving your answers. And then what's happening is the maintainers, other people in the community, it's like, yo, who is this dude? Let me give a very clear example, because sometimes we just say these things and it's too high level for people to put into action. When I was working in financial services, 20 miles north of here, maybe in the other direction, I was working in Alpharetta, Georgia, and I got this job, and it doubled my salary. Man, it was like the best feeling in the world. I'm making $45,000 working at Pier 1 off of Marietta Street, downtown Atlanta, doing tech support. And I started to learn a little bit of code there, and I made it to the engineering team. And I remember doing this job interview, and I was like, I'm good. I just got promoted. I'm at 48,000. I can't see you. 48? What you get to me? Anything.
That first big boy job feels good.
I'm feeling like I'm doing something. And so then I'm still applying for the jobs, though. The lottery ticket is still out there. You keep your resume up. The lotto ticket's still there. And then the recruiter is like, yo, we got a job, financial institution. You got to wear a dress shirt. I was like, all right, I got to go wear a dress shirt. Who knows? But I'm so ready. My skill set is, I'm talking about, I'm in that. Yeah, I remember The Last Dragon, Bruce Leroy. That got the glow. Man, I had the glow at that point. I'm sitting in the room with the lights.
All right.
The first person I got to fight is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And so I'm ready. I mean, my confidence level is that. I'm that at work. I had just got my Red Hat certified engineer. And I remember taking that test, bro. I'm so afraid of this exam because it's hands-on, ain't multiple choice. You really need to know how to troubleshoot and do all these things to Red Hat system. And I'm working in tech support. We're doing that on the phone every day. So I get to the testing zone. You get hours to this exam. 6 minutes go by, 7 minutes go by. Done. I'm done with this section. And they run this little command. Green. Kelsey, you can just chill until we start the next phase in an hour or so. I'm like, damn, your boy Mike got the glow.
Yeah. We in here.
So I go to Alpharetta to interview. You got to stay humble. Don't be arrogant. Don't cross over. But stay in that confidence lane. And they asking me questions. I'm on fire. And I'm thinking, if I get 65, we may have to move. If I just get 65, it's going to be different out here. Yeah. Right? Hey, babe, it's going to be different out here. And so I'm driving back, told my wife how I go. She's like, how'd the interview go? You got to call as soon as you get in the car.
Absolutely.
Right? As soon as you walk out of the office, you unloosen the tie. You're like, babe, I killed them. I hope they're still alive so they can.
They can't hire me if they.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Hopefully we ain't do too much.
Yeah.
And the recruiter called back and said, hey, they would like to offer you 90.
Let's go.
I got 90? You on Georgia 400 right where it merged into 85 South. You looking at Lenox Mall, be like, yo, I might need to pull over for a second.
Absolutely.
Just to redo the math.
Yeah.
Everything accelerate.
Yes.
But I had the discipline, be like, don't buy nothing. Stack everything. You ain't got to show everybody what you're making. That's for you. And so this is my mindset. And so each of these steps is luck. But I'm there now. The job is system administrator, do the JIRA tickets. So all you got to do, that's it. I'll start scratching more lotto tickets. Man, what's that mainframe do? What if I could rewrite those jobs from COBOL to Python? You ain't going to get no raise for doing that. But you got some lottery tickets. You may have to redeem one day. Man, y'all configuring these servers by hand? Now you can complain, or you can go buy some lottery tickets. I'm going to learn this puppet thing. You're not going to get no raise for that. And I remember we wasn't doing open source there. But I needed a few features in Puppet. So I'm like, man, let me go do some open source. So I'm contributing nights and weekends. Contributing. A year go by. You're not getting a raise for that. And some of y'all be mad that the ticket, you can't cash in your ticket at the job because they paying you. You think they need to give you a cash prize for every advancement you make. But I'm stacking the lotto tickets. And I remember one day, man, my manager went to a conference. John Christian. He was cool. John's like, hey, Kelsey, I know what you're doing. And this is a year and a half. You're doing DevOps. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, how you trying to give a name to what I'm doing? And you start looking at what DevOps means. Like, sure, I guess I'm learning software development from an ops perspective. And then he said, I met a guy named James Turnbull. And he wrote the Puppet book. And I bought that book. And he coming by the office. So I'm like, oh, this dope. He coming. My boss is like, I know y'all using Puppet. Maybe he can give us some tips. Boy, me and my boy exercising at the crib. We out. We on my dinner table. I was like, yo. Because we had our Puppet integrated into JIRA. You don't even know Puppet there. You just open your ticket using custom fields, and we was driving all the automation. I said, we're going to have to make sure we show him that. So when he come in, hey, James Turnbull, I know him from the book. He can't know me. Can't. We get in the elevator. My manager get in first. My other homeboy that I hired brought him in, rose his salary, created some opportunities for other people. So we in the elevator, and he's like, you're Kelsey Hightower. We love all those open source contributions. My manager is like, what's happening? That's not how that's supposed to go. We're supposed to be learning from Buddy. So we get there, and I show him the JIRA, the automation, show him how we got Puppet going. James Turnbull was like, yo, I don't got no advice for this. This fire.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I might need to think about how we let other customers in on this type of approach. So my manager's like, yo, what is happening right now? You supposed to be telling us that maybe there's room for improvement, because maybe there was. Yeah. But at that moment, James was like, I got to remember your name. And so it pays off. The lotto ticket's starting to, you know how you scratch and you ain't winning yet? And you get the one and be like, yo, $10. Only paid $1 for this.
Preparation meets opportunity.
I got to say one last part, though. This is the part that people overlook. So we did a meeting. He did a little stop because he on the road. We in Alpharetta, the airport south.
Yeah.
He about to call a cab. There's no Uber or Lyft yet. He about to call a cab. I'm like, you gonna let James catch a cab? James, you riding with me in the front seat. Are you sure? Yeah. So for an hour and a half, we chatting it up. You should speak at the conference. Yeah, it's coming soon. I go do one of my first public talks. I come back to Atlanta with a job offer. I'm an engineer at Puppet Labs. But that's that preparation plus the luck elements. Giving somebody a ride is a lotto ticket sometimes. And so that's what I mean by this luck. I'm trying to give people very clear examples of it don't always pay off in real time, so we think it's a waste of time. But the patience just comes from just stacking it up. And so then I think that's like the formula that I think you got to go by.
It's really powerful.
Absolutely.
It's really powerful because everyone, I think, who is successful in tech has those stories where they spent the time preparing, honing their craft. Everyone says, hone your craft, hone your craft. Yo, this is what honing your craft is. Those lotto tickets are skills. You're showing initiative to learn something that maybe wasn't directly tied to your job with the hopes that it will pay off in some way. These skills become things you trade on the public market of jobs, people. People need these things. And what you're saying, like my version of that is, I'm curious, how old were you when you went from the 45K to the 90K?
Man, I'm probably what, 25, 26?
25, 26. When I got in the game, I was 19, about to turn 20. And I went from that 45K to my first 65K. Woo! Look, you see that 30, over $30 an hour?
Acting a fool.
Yo, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to feel. You know, I'm feeling some type of way. Now, I don't think I was as disciplined as you were with the whole, let me stack. I stacked some, but you seem to be very aggressive about it. And then I was, in that moment, I had to, when I got the opportunity, I was in the job. There's a lot of stuff that happened before, but now, okay, there's something specific. I was actually in a data warehouse dev job. Crazy. Yeah, now that's a whole thing. But I'm in the office 5 a.m. I tell that to people. They think I'm nuts. Now, I did it the first probably 3 months was 5 a.m. I chilled out at like 3-4 months, and I did 7 a.m. You know, but I still had to continuously hone these specific skills that then translated in that situation to the job offer itself. But those things that I was learning in those windows of time wasn't just the SQL data warehousing stuff. It was, how do these applications actually fit in and work? How does this whole thing really work? What are opportunities where I can enhance a process and the ugly parts that no one wants to do? That mindset, the mindset that Kelsey is talking about right now, that then transferred over for me from that $30 an hour job, we in the $60 an hour job now. Whoa. I don't know how to feel. All I know is that process is working. People, I feel like they don't get those tangible examples enough. And you outlined it in such a way that I think if you're listening, go to your job tomorrow, go look at at all the work that you got going on, and ask yourself, where are those lotto tickets for me? Where are those opportunities for me? What can I do that no one's willing to do where I can add value? Because that's what open source is too.
Without looking for immediate gratification or response as a result. Like, I had to do some like self-reflection while you were telling that story, because I mean, times I've been at work like, that is not my job. Like, that is, they're not, because they're not going to maybe actually. It's not even like, ooh, I hope if I do this, they'll see it. And sometimes, flat out, yeah, they'll just be like, good job. And they'll keep going on. But that's okay. That is 100% okay, because it stacks to that resume. It stacks to that understanding, and it gives you that preparedness. It's that dream shake in the backyard. You can't just not take the dream shake because somebody might not pay for it later, because you never know. Even though you might be 4'10", you never know. Ooh, that little back, he fell for that. Okay, that little thing I was doing for, okay, they actually do appreciate it, or somebody else appreciates it. But if you sell yourself short by not filling gaps or not learning skills or not scratching those lottery tickets because you feel like there is no immediate payoff for those.
I mean, it's so unfortunate that and I get it, and I understand it. So I want to make sure I'm saying stuff with empathy and clarity. Mm-hmm. We tend to kind of tune ourselves to the job description. The job says it needs these skills. We double down on that. We do that. We trade our time for money. And a lot of times we just go at that pace. And then the thing that you realize is that, look, that's what they're buying for now. What are you selling, though? I can be that today. But what I wanted to be tomorrow, I have a little bit of control on that. Because I think when people get burnt out in this industry is because when we overfit to the job description, it feels very robotic. Right? That's the 20 years of 1 year experience. You're just in this loop. And of course, they'll feel very inspiring to keep doing that forever. But I do think there's another part of the game where you start to say, what am I putting on the table for later? And if the company wants to invest in it, then cool. If not, that's on you, or it could be. So I just want to make sure people realize that totally it ain't fair. You're doing all this extra stuff they ain't paying. But you ever seen like an NBA player on their final contract? They on year number 6, is about to run out. They rebounding. He's like, when he started rebounding?
He'll do that.
He'll never play defense. This year, he doing all these extra things because he knows contract negotiation. And when they look at the game film, it's like, yo, your team is like, we can't afford it. When I seen people like Jalen Brunson go from one team into becoming the star of New York Knicks, he's like, I didn't know he had all of that in him. But I think that's the thing where it's like, I had this phrase, different company, same team. Right? Like, to me, if I can get it here, then great. But you don't dictate my growth because I'll go this way if I have to.
All right, so you mentioned contract negotiation. So we're going to be wrapping this up. I know it's long. But we have to talk about how in tech, from the beginning of your career through the end, and I talk to a lot of people who are experiencing this now, options, trying to get equity, figure out how to treat equity, how to negotiate their comp. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Any insights?
Maybe I'll just do it as a timeline as far as I can remember. Like McDonald's, there's a sign in the door, $4.75 an hour, and you just apply and you get what's on the sign. Everybody getting the same thing. And when you come in, they put you wherever they wanted to put you in. If you want more, I think I became a shift manager. I'm like 16-year-old telling people that are like 35 to clock out. And they looking at you like, what? And so, that was kind of straightforward. And most jobs had the same blueprint. When I kind of got my tech skills, I was afraid to do the corporate America jobs because I was like, I don't have those skills. And so when I got my A+ certification, Network Plus certification, I ended up getting a job with like a contracting firm. I think they were called like EcoComp. They were doing contract work for Bell South. And that was like if you do a new install, you make like $100, $150. If you did like a repair, it might be $50. So, if somebody's getting DSL, high-speed internet for the first time, you get that paid. And so you're just trying to like, how many calls can I do in a day? So you kind of grind it. But mathematically, you have to drive between all these locations. There's no way you're going to make more than a certain amount of money. And so most of my career is that. But I opened a computer store, and when I did that, I was doing service calls because of piggybacking off of those service calls. I'm putting in the router, connecting the printer, getting all these other things done. So you start to understand that if I hire some people, I can remove this limit of what one person could do. But then when I go back to corporate America, every couple of months, I'm like, here's a good job, here's where to pay, let me get that. Rinse and repeat. But then at some point, you do start to negotiate. And I don't think I had the courage to negotiate until, at least halfway in my career. I'm just happy to get the job. It pays more than the other. You don't know what you're worth. If you start at 30 and you go to 45, to you, the game has changed. Right? So when you start to get to 100, like I didn't even know they pay people like that. And so a lot of it was that. So then you get to this other part of your career when you start negotiating. Because what happens is you go from applying from a lot of jobs, at least I did, to people saying, what would it take for you to work here? There's a difference. When you apply for the job, I could take you or any of these other people that are applying. But when I come to you, I'm trying to hire you specifically, the numbers are different. Negotiation leverage is very different when someone wants to hire you. So this is why I think a lot of people get frustrated. I applied for this job. I did good on the interview, and now I want to negotiate. I can hire the other 3 candidates too. So here's my bar, take it or leave it. Because if this job required you, it came for you. We just posted the job. We would take, remember I told you about the top 10,000. All of them were valid candidates. So that just helps, that hurts the leverage a little bit. But when I started getting a little bit better at it, I was like, listen, here's the number I want. The problem is the number I want wasn't the right number. It was still too low. People was probably smiling when I was throwing out some of those numbers. I'm going to need 160. Sure. Yeah. Right? And so, no problem. And so, you start to work for a startup. I remember getting startup equity. Like, what is this? It's just paper. It's not like they're stock market stocks that are liquid. You can trade them anytime you want. These are like if we have an exit, and then your stocks are so many tiers below the other stocks. You got like this fantasy money. VCs getting paid first, investors getting paid, founders with real equity are getting paid. And if everything go well and we get 10x return, not double, we need to get a huge return. And if we get that, then them little paper things you got socked away, literally lottery tickets, might pay off. And then IRS and taxes and all these other things. But that equity shift for a lot of people has been a game changer, right? Because some people, that equity turns into something magical and powerful. For the majority of my career, none of that stuff ever paid off. None of it. And it wasn't really until I got to like Google, that RSU, that restricted stock unit is different.
Yeah, I love RSU.
It's real money with zero strike price. Let me put it into context. You go to work one day and they tell you your base salary, I'm going to make up numbers so none of y'all try to kidnap me or my family. But let's just say you go and they say, we're going to give you $200K base. You're like, okay. And then we're going to give you $400,000 over 4 years. So when you do the total comp math, and maybe there's a 20% target bonus, and that bonus is targeted at your 200 base. So if you do perfect and everything is okay with the company, you can count on 240, 20 plus the 40 on the equity. And so let's just say the stock price stays stagnant. Your total comp is 340. And you may just sell as soon as you get it. So 340 is what you make that year, you pay your taxes. And then something weird happens. 100, the stock price doubles. So next year, you at 440. In your mind, right? So you're not overly spending. And so I'm getting these numbers. I'm sitting there like, I wouldn't ask for this because I didn't have the courage to actually. So then there are companies that can afford to pay you. So this is the difference. If you work at a company that makes very little revenue, they can't afford you. If Michael Jordan played for the YMCA team, they can't. They don't have it.
They want to.
They want to. They would if they could. They don't have it. So when you go to a place like Google, they have it. So when they say performance-based comp, when I used to be a manager, the hard truth is the pay difference typically from the superstar on the team and the average dude that's doing a little bit above getting fired, 15%. You make 100, he make 115. He think the 15 is making him top Mount Rushmore. But it's only 15. The other dude laughing like, bro, after taxes, we talking 7.5. Yeah. So you out here doing double, I'm chilling. But when you get into the bigger companies, the performance difference can be dramatic. So they say, yo, you know, you've been doing pretty well. We're gonna double the stock. And they build it on top of each other. So you still got you're on year 3, so you still got the 100 from the last time that is now 2. Then I'm backed up another 2. So you at 6. So you had 600. You like, I can retire by, I don't know, 55, 56. Cash, pay my taxes, cash up, buy some U.S. Treasuries. 6, I'm done. We just got to ride this out for the next 20 years. That's the math. So you doing your thing, you rocking, you still out there, you're improving your skills, people can see you. Then you don't need LinkedIn no more, so it gets deleted. You haven't seen your resume in a long time because nobody asking for it no more. So the negotiation power has swung. So when people say our salary range is like, hey, man, I'm not really worried about your salary range. I'm here to talk about mine. This is my salary range. This is what I'm currently doing. I'm not leaving that. So everything reset. And so now you reset and he's like, look, I'm good. I can just stay here. And I remember there was 2 situations. Like there was a startup. I won't mention their name. But this dude offered me $1 million cash to sign. Like $1 million cash. No problem. A startup now.
Wow.
$1 million cash. Plus like 200-something thousand for a startup. He's like, Kelsey, we know what we're dealing with. But we know what our exit's going to be. So this is no problem. And I think it was 4% of the company. I'm sitting there doing the math like, yo, mathematically, the first 2 years is going to be competitive with what I'm currently doing. But the long end, if you get these exits, man, that could be great. But I'm on a for sure thing. So the first thing is I didn't have the courage, even with the safety net, $1 million up front, that's a safety net that makes it easy to go get the 4%. Mm-hmm. Easy. They took all the risk out of it. But he's like, you got until tomorrow. Didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
You got until tomorrow.
Powerful move, though.
It was a genius move.
Yeah.
So I'm texting the Google team like, it's not my style. Because when y'all go in there with the whole ultimatum, you might get fired on the spot. So make sure don't go in there playing. It's not a game for the lightweight. Mm-hmm. So you say, hey, look, I just got this offer. And it's tempting. And, say, hey, let me just go and do a thing. And I remember they was like, yeah, no problem. They send you this email with a PDF attached to it. Here's some more RSUs to just cover all that up. Don't think about that for a moment. So your money go up. Mm-hmm. We're using fictitious numbers. So your money up now, you like, I'm good. But here's the thing that changes your world. Let's just say you get to, 6 figures is good. I'm going to tell anybody, 6 figures, you have made it. Don't let nobody tell you no different. But when they add a 0, now you got to ask yourself, what do you do with it? Because you could go out there and jump out there and be like, I got to make sure y'all see the price change. And then you start to get into that behind the music situation where it can all be gone. So you say, no, let me just chill because instead of 50-something, we can shave a decade off on this trajectory. So let's relax. So now it goes from I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to buy a Mercedes. I'm going to buy a Lamborghini. I'm going to do a trip around the world. You can do all that shit, of course. Or you can say, I'm going to buy back a decade. I'm going to buy a decade. So now your mindset is like, oh, this money going to buying time back. So then your formula is a little different. I remember I'm good now. Family good. The trajectory good. Everything is good, good, good. And so now you're like, you know what? I'm never going to need another job in my life. I ain't going to need to negotiate again in my life. Stock is still appreciating. And so the thing is, I don't think it's possible. It ain't possible to trade your time and be wealthy. It's not possible. No one's going to pay you that kind of money per hour. It ain't possible. I don't think it's possible. And so when you get equity, even if you're not a savvy business person, think about all the people that was working in NVIDIA 6 years ago and then sell no shares. Was that person getting paid $1 million a year? Not at all. They was making 180. All of a sudden, their equity multiplied by 200 and 300, 400, 2,000%. This person went from making 150, probably had 800,000 in the bank, to being worth $35 million. Now, if you ask them for advice and they're not honest, they'll tell you, just work hard. No. They had them lottery tickets, but real ones this time. And they held long enough. So that equity game is a bet on this future, but the thing is, we just have enough history to tell us this stuff appreciates. And the last move I think I made was Microsoft changed the game. Microsoft was so kind. This is the first time I ever experienced an executive recruitment process. Because when the math is different, this ain't no HR call screen. That's not what's happening. There's a person that's assigned to you. And this person will say, hey, they're not asking for resumes, cover letters. They may do due diligence with references, but the thing is they know who you are. And they know what the ballpark is. In professional sports, they know what the going rate is for what they consider top-tier talent. And I told my wife, well, I'm going to Microsoft. You see what we doing over here. For what? I don't even like Windows. Why would I do that? So now you cross over to the arrogance component, which could cost you money. Arrogance could be expensive. So I was like, babe, we good over here. We got our trajectory. She's like, you should just go see. I was like, all right, I'm going to Seattle. And the interview process is weird because you meet all these high-profile people. These are the people you like, yo, yes. And the questions are, so what do you want to know? Like, we're not finna do the whiteboard? So why we need a whiteboard when we've been seeing? And so, this is really about your future here. And then I went and did. I was like, I don't know how I feel because I don't think I showed them anything. But they knew enough. They knew what they were getting involved in. And this offer came. It was double up. And we doubled up from a different base. And I'm seeing these numbers. I'm sitting there like, this is not real. And I had people in my circle. I was like, hey, man, I'm just curious. What do you make? And there's other zeros that come with this stuff. And you're like, damn, so I didn't know this. Like, oh, yeah, you should be. So I get this thing and I'm looking at it. It's like, yo, damn, you could shave off 20 years off the equation. So you're like, damn, okay. Now remember, you don't have the audacity to ask for more than this. Look at the numbers. This is insane. You look at the numbers like this ain't real. I think they're going to trick me. They're just going to get me over there and then fire me just so I don't work it. Something, this ain't right. It's like, no, that's just where you're going to start over here. And so you look at it, and I remember getting it, and I was just like, I'm going to counter it. And remember, your counter at this point is what some people happy making.
Yeah.
You just want to add that on top just to see. And I remember they countered even higher. It's like, we're not playing. I said, you countered back higher, so stop playing. Seriously, it was like, stop playing. We're not playing games. I'm sitting there like, okay. And at this point, I was going to go to Microsoft. I was like, you know what? No one has put those kind of numbers on paper. And even at this point, this is just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm doing well. But you see the tour, the thing is, there was people who saw more value than I saw in myself. Because I wasn't arguing for these kind of numbers while I was in the moment. It's just that it was coming. And it forced me to relook at everything. And I remember my manager, he's so dope. And he was like, yo, he saw the numbers. He said, can I see? And they sent it to you on PowerPoint. It's a PowerPoint. So you can click through it and see how the component is broke down. You see your growth potential. You see all this stuff. You're looking at these numbers. And then my manager saw it. He looked at it. He was like, yeah. But he said something dope. He was like, do you know you're worth every penny of this stuff? And it was nice to hear that. Even if I felt it, I don't know if I believed it. He said, I just want to see something. I just want to see, just knowing your impact here. I just want to see what they say. I said, nah, man, I'm not doing no counter. We're not playing games as a competitor. They want me out of here. As if that really mattered in this situation. And he said, I just want to see. I'm just curious. And he ran it up the chain. And they ran it back down the chain like, no problem. You get another one of those PDFs that make that a null and void issue. And so that technique of a negotiation is just understanding where are you in the market. And it's a long negotiation. You're negotiating every public appearance as a negotiation. What am I worth? Whatever number you had in mind is different. And luckily for me, I never really had to push too hard, but I found a way to get that evidence that this is the number. And it just quadratic. I mean, that last 6 years was probably 3 times more than all the other years combined. And so this thing is where I said it's going to be all right. That's what I meant by it. Like you thinking you're on one timeline and something happens and it puts you on a different timeline. And again, for me, I've been debt-free, lived below the means. I didn't try to let the money dictate the lifestyle. So that means you get to save it and you can buy something more powerful. So this negotiation is forever. It doesn't stop. So if you want a nickel and dime over 1,000 or 3,000 here and there, you just got to ask yourself, it's like, what are you really arguing for? And do you have the evidence to go with it? Because some of us haven't done the work yet. I've been here 5 years. I should be a staff or senior engineer. It's like, this ain't a time thing. It's got to be an impact thing. So to wrap this up, I've always negotiated with impact and evidence. And I lacked the courage to be proactive about it. But I was at least humble enough to go and hear people out to see what the new rates were. So that's been my formula.
Phenomenal. I think that's an amazing spot to end.
For real.
Look, we deeply appreciate, I'll speak for myself, I deeply appreciate you coming on. I think there's a lot of value here. Hopefully the audience gets value. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff.
Indeed.
And we'll have to try and do this again. You know, I'm going to bug you. But this was great. Thank you so much.
And G, where can they find you, my brother?
Oh, I'm Dev Hulk on all the stuff, all the things.
As I typically say in my videos, you won't find me. So unless I'm here on this page and then on that medium, you most likely won't find me. But who knows? Conversations over the last 24 hours has me rethinking that. So
I'm gonna try to do one more thing too today.
possibly.
Let people see you. You can't be afraid to be great. If I can't see you, how would I know?
Sure.
So it's not that you got to tweet nonsense. You ain't got to be on Instagram taking pictures around cars you don't own. You just letting people see you. You don't know who need to see it.
True.
Love it. And Kelsey Hightower, just Google him if you don't know what he's on. He likes Twitter a lot.
He does.
Any other place you want to find you at?
No, man. My Twitter is there. My email address is in my bio. Don't email me no foolishness. I'm really here to match your energy. So if you put some thought into it, I promise to attempt to match your energy. And so that's where I am.
Awesome. All right, I'll wrap it up. See you next time.
Appreciate you.